Hello, I hope you are having a lovely, lovely day. And today I just wanted to chat a little bit about some things that I thought I knew about breastfeeding before I had my kids, but it turns out I was wrong. It's not always easy to admit about being wrong about things, and it's not anything super crazy, but there were some things that I thought I knew, and there were things that I definitely wish someone had talked to me about beforehand. So I'm hoping to help you with that. If there were things that, you would like to know before you have your child, or I would love to hear from you what things you wish you had known before you had started. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Darcy Zalewski. I write at darcyandbrian.com where I talk about kids' activities, parenting tips, simple recipes, and family travel. I also have a new beauty and breastfeeding support group, a mom-to-mom support group here on Facebook, and I have the link of that in the description. And we're just getting started with that, but there's a great group of ladies in there. And I'm also the author of Breastfeeding 101, Beauty and Breastfeeding. It was a book that I wrote to share support and encouragement and tips with other moms. It's not like a clinical type book, it's, mom to mom. So that is available on Amazon, and I have the link for that in the description as well in case you are interested. So let's get into it. The number one thing that I thought I knew about breastfeeding before I started, and this is something that I see a lot of moms kind of talk about after they've started, is I thought it was going to be easy. And I thought I was so prepared because I went to the classes, I read lots of parenting books, and I'd seen it done. Though in all honesty, I didn't see it a lot. Like, I wasn't around a lot of women that were breastfeeding when, as I grew up, and even before I had, like, as an adult, before I had kids. I just wasn't around. I wasn't seeing it. Didn't have that, I don't know, just didn't have that experience a ton. And I just assumed it was going to be easy because when I know things and I have information, it makes it easier, right? Well, it did to a certain extent, but I found out very fast that it wasn't easy. Within the first few weeks, my daughter was having some issues with latching, and I had to go see a lactation consultant to help me out with that. I had days where it hurt. There were days that I didn't feel like having anyone touch me. There were times where I just was emotional, or I had trouble getting comfortable, getting a good latch, or sitting comfortably, or feeling comfortable with the whole process. Like, is she nursing too much? Is she nursing too little? It started to get a little overwhelming. Now, not to scare anybody, obviously, but then things started to get better. I wouldn't say easy necessarily, but there's something magical magical about the 6-week mark. And it was with both of my kids. After 6 weeks, it's like things just clicked between each of my babies and me. Things clicked a little faster with my second than it did with my first, but with my daughter, once we hit 6 weeks, my milk supply established, she was able to latch a lot easier, and it just seemed to go smoother at that point. But one of the things that I definitely did not expect was just like little things. So one of my kids loved to stick their finger into my belly button while they were nursing. I don't know why. It drove me crazy, especially when he was really sleepy. Like that, I don't know why. It was just one of those sensory things, maybe. And I would try to cover it up, but the little kid would just try to dig into my belly button. Drove me nuts. And it was something that I didn't know that other moms were going through until way later on, and I was in a Facebook group and we were talking about things like that. It definitely would have been something that would have been helpful if I had known about earlier. And then one of my other kids liked to twiddle the other side. So whatever side she was nursing on, she wanted to twiddle the other side. So it took some time for me to figure out ways to redirect that, because it wasn't something that I really knew much about, and it was kind of, I felt embarrassed, like, asking someone about it. I mean, I didn't want to ask some random person or someone I didn't know very well about it, because I didn't know that it was a common thing. One of the other things that I thought would be, one of the other things that I didn't realize before I started breastfeeding was how difficult pumping is. I kind of had this, idea in my head that, I was going to breastfeed, it was going to be super easy, and if I needed to be away, it was going to, because originally my plan was to go back to work at my full-time job as a case manager. And I thought it would be super easy to supply pumped milk and all that kind of stuff. Now, things changed, so I didn't have to go back to, I didn't have a job to go back to, unfortunately. There was some changes that happened in my department and stuff while I was on maternity leave. And, that kind of changed some of our plans, so I didn't have to worry about pumping right away in terms of that. However, during the stretch when my daughter was having difficulty latching, she still needed to be fed, and I needed to give her formula until I was able to pump enough milk to be able to bottle feed with breast milk while working on getting her latch reestablished. But I thought it was going to be easy. I was in tears because of how little I was pumping at the time, because I just didn't realize how hard it was. And any mom that that has to pump, like, I totally respect what goes into that, because it's not easy. Like, I just thought it was before I had started, but it isn't. It's a lot of work, and it's just one of those things that I didn't realize until I was going through it, and didn't really know anyone to tell me otherwise. One of the other things that I thought I knew before I started breastfeeding was, I thought breastfeeding in public would be very difficult. I didn't see it done a whole lot at the time, and with our challenges within the first few weeks of issues with latching, I didn't feel comfortable letting anyone else see me nurse my baby. Even when I was with family, as much as I felt comfortable with them, I would go into a different room while nursing her, because sometimes it took several times for her to latch properly, and I felt, I guess I would say ashamed that I was having such a difficult time, and I didn't want anyone seeing that, and I didn't want anyone, seeing, I hate people seeing my stomach, my bare stomach. So until I started learning about the ways to layer my shirts and things like that to be more comfortable, I kind of hid away. I assumed I could use a cover and that would be simple, but with my kids, that was never an option. They always tried to rip those off from, like, very early on. Even as a tiny little newborn, my daughter was not happy and would be very vocal about how unhappy she was that I was trying to use a cover. So in the beginning, I just assumed that it was very difficult to breastfeed in public until I got more established with it, and I felt more comfortable just within my home having more people see me. And then I slowly started nursing more while we were out and about without feeling like I had to go hide. Thankfully, I never really encountered people saying rude things, because that's a whole another issue that happens, and it's really important to know that you know your rights about breastfeeding in public. And then eventually I was able to learn how to nurse while Babywearing, so it was really convenient, wandering around the zoo, being able to nurse while my baby was in my baby carrier, and got to the point where I just started to feel super comfortable wherever I was, and I could nurse wherever, but it didn't start out that way. I also assumed that there would be no drinking. I enjoy a glass of wine. I enjoy margaritas. I don't drink super often, but I do enjoy a drink, and I assumed that there was going to be zero drinking while breastfeeding until my baby was weaned and all that kind of stuff. And that was something that I thought I knew going into it, but eventually, I read more information about it and learned that I didn't have to stop doing that, and there weren't things that I had to stop eating just because. I mean, there are some situations where people have to do elimination diets and things like that, but going into it, I wasn't sure if there were certain things I had to stay away from. And then I found out that I was not fully informed on some of that. I also assumed that weaning would be easy. Before I started breastfeeding, I kind of had this idea of, it'd be great if we nursed for 6 months to a year. My goal was a year. And I didn't know a lot about it. I didn't really know much about extended breastfeeding at the time either. And I just kind of assumed that 1 was where I should stop. And I ended up breastfeeding both of my children until they were a little over 3 years old. And they mostly self-weaned by that point. I kind of helped encourage the weaning as we got closer to 3. But when they turned, around their first birthdays, well, with my daughter, initially, when she had her first birthday, I was like, there's no way this weaning thing is happening right now. Thankfully, I didn't need to have her wean at that point. It wasn't affecting the way that, our lives were or anything. So I was able to continue and have extended breastfeeding with her. But when I did start feeling more and more touched out, because I was still breastfeeding her while I was pregnant with my son, and I was like, maybe I should wean her. I should wean now so that I don't have to deal with this, because when I was pregnant it was a lot more sensitive, and I had more nursing aversions than I did when I wasn't pregnant. But weaning is not as, especially if your little one is not ready to be weaned completely from breastfeeding, it's not as easy as I thought it would be. It just sort of seemed like, I could decide to do it one day, and it just didn't really work that way. So those are a few of the things that I thought I knew about breastfeeding before I had my kids. I thought it was going to be easy. I thought pumping would be super easy, to build a milk stash. I thought nursing in public would be really hard. I thought weaning would be easy. Thought I wouldn't be able to have a glass of wine or a margarita for years. But as I got to know more moms that were also nursing, and just continued to do reading and research, those things changed, as well as just the way that my experiences were with my kids. Because not everyone's breastfeeding journey is the same, and there are things that you learn along the way that you wouldn't necessarily be prepared for ahead of time. I find it really, really important to have support from other moms so that you can hear from them and know that you're not alone in what you're going through, and feel like you have a safe place to talk about all those kinds of things. So that is why I wrote my book, Breastfeeding 101, Beauty and Breastfeeding, and that is also why I have started a mom-to-mom support group that is also called Beauty and Breastfeeding here on Facebook. And the links for both those are in the description, so if you want to check them out, we would love to have you in the group, and we'd love to give you support and empowerment, and all those good things. So, have a wonderful day. Thanks so much. Bye.